At the beginning of the film, we are introduced to a man named Pardo. He is on his way to church, just like he always is. Pardo is deeply religious, the kind of man who never misses a single service. Faith is the center of his life. While sitting inside the church, he overhears another man praying desperately. The man is asking God for justice after his wife was harassed by gangsters. No one dares to arrest them. Even the police have been bribed into silence. All the man can do is pray and beg for fair punishment for those responsible. Pardo listens quietly and simply says, "Amen" in his heart. Later we see Pardo back in his small rented room. That is when we learn the truth about him. He used to be a highly skilled hitman, feared and respected. But now he has repented and chosen a life devoted to God. Suddenly, he takes out a gun and begins a game of Russian roulette. He loads a single bullet into a revolver that could hold 6, spins the chamber, and pulls the trigger against his own head. The gun clicks. No bullet. To Pardo, that means God has given him permission to keep living. After surviving, he decides to answer the prayer he heard in church. He heads straight to the gang's hideout and takes them down one by one without mercy. Outnumbered yet unstoppable, he wipes them out. The next day, he leaves the city behind and moves somewhere new. From that moment on, he makes a promise to himself. He will help anyone who suffers injustice. For Pardo, this is his way of paying for the sins of his past. When he arrives in the new city, the first place he visits is a church, seeking forgiveness once again. But there he notices a man named Agustin acting suspiciously, hiding a bag in a hurry. Curious, Pardo follows him all the way to the harbor. Soon, 4 men confront Agustin. They are searching for the very bag he hid. When Agustin refuses to reveal its location, they beat him mercilessly before leaving him there. After they are gone, Pardo approaches and helps Agustin to his feet. Agustin is too weak to walk and begs to be taken home. Without hesitation, Pardo carries him there. At home, Agustin's wife, Antonia, tends to his wounds. Once Agustin feels a little better, Pardo asks him what he is praying for now. Agustin says he only wants the 4 men who attacked him to face severe punishment, because he did nothing wrong. Immediately, Pardo performs his ritual again. He loads a single bullet, spins the chamber, and pulls the trigger at his own head. Once again, the gun does not fire. To him, that is a sign God has allowed him to act. From that point on, people begin calling him the Redeemer. Not long after, Pardo confronts the 4 men alone. A brutal fight breaks out, but it is clear he is far from ordinary. One by one, he takes them down. From a distance, Agustin can only watch in disbelief at what Pardo is capable of. When it is over, Pardo quietly leaves and heads back to Agustin's house. On his way back, Pardo notices several heavily armed men patrolling the area. Fortunately, they are not after him, so he manages to enter Agustin's house safely. Inside, he asks about the armed men outside. That is when Agustin finally tells the truth. It turns out those men are looking for him. Earlier, Agustin found a bag filled with cash and hid it somewhere. What he did not realize at first was that the money belongs to the most ruthless drug mafia boss in the city, a man named Icaro. Now Icaro has ordered all his men to track Agustin down. Agustin's intention, however, was to donate the money to the church so it could be used to help people in need. After hearing this, Pardo promises to protect Agustin and his wife Antonia from Icaro's pursuit. He takes them to a cave and tells them to hide there temporarily. Before leaving, he warns them not to step outside until he returns. As for himself, he plans to visit Icaro's headquarters and try to settle the matter peacefully. Soon, Pardo arrives at the Mafia's base. Unfortunately, Icaro is not there. Only his right-hand man, Emilio, is present. Pardo is surrounded by Emilio's men and questioned about his purpose. He claims he only came to inform them that the bag they are searching for is now at the church. Hearing this, Emilio immediately rushes off to the church and orders his men to make sure Pardo does not leave. When Emilio reaches the church, he searches the entire place, but the bag is nowhere to be found. Realizing he has been tricked, he becomes furious. He tries to call his men and orders them to eliminate Pardo at once, but no one answers. Frustrated, Emilio heads back to the base. What he does not know is that Pardo has already begun taking down his men one by one. By the time Emilio returns, the place is silent. Every single one of his men has been wiped out. Shocked, Emilio finally understands that Pardo is far more dangerous than he imagined. Without wasting time, he rushes to report everything to Icaro. At the main headquarters, Emilio explains that Pardo has slaughtered his entire crew. He warns that reclaiming the bag and capturing Agustin will now be much harder, because Pardo is involved. But Icaro does not care how skilled Pardo is. All that matters to him is getting the money back, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, Pardo returns to the cave and is surprised to see that the bag of money is still with Agustin and Antonia. He immediately takes it, intending to return it to Icaro and end the conflict once and for all. But Antonia begs him not to do it. She believes returning the money will change nothing, and they will still be hunted. She reveals that their child is seriously ill in the hospital, and they desperately need the money for medical treatment. Even after hearing this, Pardo remains firm. He insists on returning the bag, determined to settle the matter his own way. On his way, something suddenly hits Pardo. He remembers his wife and child, both taken from him in a brutal act of violence. The pain of that loss rushes back all at once. In that moment, he realizes how unbearable it is to lose the people you love. So he turns around, goes back to the cave, and hands the bag of money to Antonia. He believes this is not his decision, but God's will. As always, he tests that belief the only way he knows how. He loads a single bullet, spins the chamber, and pulls the trigger against his own head. The gun does not fire. Once again, he takes it as a sign that he is meant to live and meant to help Antonia and Agustin.
Amen.
Later that afternoon, Pardo sits alone by the beach, lost in thought. His mind drifts back to the past, to the time when his wife was heavily pregnant. He remembers the man who destroyed everything, a ruthless hitman named Alacran. Just like Pardo, Alacran was a skilled assassin, but he wanted no competition. That is why he captured Pardo and his wife and tortured them mercilessly. Alacran forced Pardo to make an impossible choice. Either he would end his wife's life himself, or she would slowly die from the torment. Unable to bear her suffering any longer, Pardo made the heartbreaking decision to end it. After that, Alacran left him to die in the middle of the desert, weak and broken. Before leaving, he handed Pardo a gun with a single bullet and told him to choose his own death, whether from the heat or by his own hand. Pardo pulled the trigger, the gun clicked, but no bullet came out. Somehow, he survived. From that moment on, he swore he would avenge his wife and unborn child. He eventually tracked Alacran down and tried to kill him. But his shot missed and accidentally struck Alacran's only son instead. Because of that, Alacran vowed to hunt Pardo forever. Back in the present, Emilio, one of the Mafia leaders, discovers yet another one of his men shot dead. He is convinced that Pardo is responsible and immediately reports it to Icaro. Icaro, however, remains calm. He claims he is not afraid of Pardo at all. His driver, on the other hand, panics and urges him to take action. Irritated by the fear and hesitation, Icaro kills his own driver without a second thought. After that, Icaro orders all his men, including Emilio, not to fear Pardo. In his eyes, Pardo is just one man, and they are many. He believes there is no way Pardo can stand against them all. But the very next day, Pardo walks straight into Icaro's headquarters alone. Moving silently and methodically, he infiltrates the building and begins taking them down one by one. At the same time, Agustin decides to take a huge risk. Determined to help Pardo, he takes a boat and heads out to join the fight against Icaro. But halfway through his journey, he is spotted by some of Icaro's men. They immediately begin chasing him. Just when things cannot get worse, his boat runs out of fuel. With no other option, Agustin dives into the water and tries to escape by swimming. Somehow, he manages to lose them and reaches the shore safely. But his relief does not last long. Waiting for him there is Alacran, Pardo's old enemy, the hitman who has been hunting him for years. Meanwhile, back at the headquarters, Pardo comes face to face with Emilio in a brutal hand-to-hand fight. The two clash fiercely, but after a long and exhausting battle, Pardo finally overpowers and kills him. He then makes his way to Icaro's office, gun raised, ready to finish it. But when he enters, he finds Icaro already dead. No one knows who pulled the trigger. As Pardo looks around, he notices a bullet casing on the floor. He recognizes it instantly. It belongs to Alacran. Pardo realizes that Alacran killed Icaro because he wants Pardo for himself. He does not want anyone else to take that satisfaction away from him. Before Pardo can react, he is suddenly struck from behind and knocked unconscious. When he wakes up, Alacron is standing right in front of him, ready to shoot. And it gets worse. Agustin and Antonia are there too, both captured and held hostage. Alacron does not want to kill Pardo right away. Instead, he forces him into a twisted game of Russian roulette involving Agustin and Antonia. The game will continue until one of them dies. Agustin refuses to be part of it, since he has nothing to do with their past. Without hesitation, Alacron shoots and kills him. Now Pardo and Antonia are left with no choice but to play. But in a brief moment of distraction, Pardo attacks Alacron. A savage fight breaks out between the two men. They trade blows in a desperate, brutal struggle. In the end, Pardo manages to leave Alacron mortally wounded, but he does not finish him off. Instead, he gives Alacron the same cruel choice he once faced. He can bleed out slowly, or he can play Russian roulette alone. Pardo hands him a revolver loaded with a single bullet, then leaves with Antonia. As they walk away, not far from the scene, a single gunshot echoes in the distance. That sound tells Pardo everything. Alacron is dead. In Pardo's eyes, it means God no longer allowed him to live. With the past finally settled, Pardo decides to take Agustin's place in Antonia's life. He hopes to start over, this time choosing peace instead of bloodshed. So the moral of the story is, if you are going to make life decisions, maybe do not use Russian roulette as your spiritual customer service hotline.